Today we're going to be harvesting and preparing one of spring's most popular wild edibles, wild leeks. Wild leeks are only available in the springtime, which depending on your area can be anywhere between late March and early June, and they can be found in hardwood forests. Their short harvest season makes them even more of a sought-after treat. Versatile and delicious, the entire plant is edible and can be used in a variety of ways. Wild leeks taste like a cross between onions and garlic and are commonly used in dishes the same way that onions would be. So here we have a large patch of wild leeks, and you'll notice if we go down closer to a plant, they usually have 2 or 3 leaves that are connected to a stem. The stem is usually red but can also be white, and if you're having a hard time identifying them, the most definitive identifying feature is if you smell it, it will smell strongly of onion, and that's how you know you've got a wild leek. Wild leeks, they do take about 7 years to grow, so it's not recommended that we harvest the bulb. We don't want to be pulling up these leeks by the root. We want to practice sustainable harvesting. So this is public land, so I have to assume that other people will be harvesting from the same patch. So I don't want to take too much. We're not going to cut the bulb. We're not going to pull up the plant by its roots. I'm going to cut down at about ground level, and I'm going to be using the leaves and the stems in my recipes. You do want to be mindful, and you only want to collect a handful of the plants from the area that you're harvesting in. You want to make sure that that plant can come back next year and produce more and more. Unfortunately, in my area, there have been issues with people over harvesting, so neighboring provinces, such as Quebec, for example, Quebec is very, very strict on their wild leek harvesting. So you have to be very mindful of how much you're taking. You want to practice sustainable harvesting practices. We want to make sure that this plant can come back for years to come. Some people say you should only be harvesting 1 leaf from the plant in order to practice sustainable harvesting. Some people say you can take all the leaves, just leave the bulbs. The patch I'm harvesting from is very defined and very well established, so I'm not too concerned about leaving 1 leaf. I am going to leave the bulbs though. I'm just going to be harvesting the leaves at ground level. So this is a good example. Both of these are leeks, but one of them has a white stalk and the other one has a red stalk. So sometimes you can't always rely on the color of the stalk to differentiate if a plant is a wild leek or not. But for me, the best identifying feature is the smell. When you smell these, you will absolutely know that these are wild leeks. They have a very, very potent onion smell. There's no mistaking it. So if in doubt, just give it a smell, and it'll definitely smell like onion. That's how you know you have the right thing. They usually have 2 to 3 leaves. Usually 2, sometimes 3. But the smell is unmistakable. I'm gonna take this guy here. Just gonna clear these leaves away. And I'm just gonna take my knife and I'm just gonna do a nice clean cut. And there we go. So I'm just gonna collect a few of these and I'm going to put them in my bag and we're gonna head out. So this is what I've gathered. I never take more than what I need. So this is all I'll take for the whole spring probably. I might come back in a couple weeks to collect a couple more, but this is usually all that I take. This is a great example of a patch that you would not harvest wild leeks from. There are very, very few. It's not established at all. And by harvesting from patches like this, you are not practicing sustainable foraging practices. We're going to start off by washing our leeks. You are going to notice that there is a thin skin on each leek that does have to be removed, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I do find it easier to do when the leek is wet. To make pickled leeks, we first need to separate the stem from the leaf of the plant. We only want to pickle the lower half of the plant, so we're not going to pickle the leaves. We're only going to be pickling the stem. If you had bulbs as well, you could pickle the bulbs. In this case, we didn't harvest any bulbs. It's not recommended, so we're just pickling stems today. We're going to set the leaves aside and we're going to use them in different recipes. I only have enough stems to make 1 jar of pickled leeks, so I'm only going to make a small amount of brine. If you were pickling significantly more, you would definitely want to increase the ratios. For my brine, I did half a cup of vinegar, which was a mixture of pickling vinegar as well as a little bit of apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar just helps to prevent the stems from turning green. I also did a 1/4 cup of water, half a tablespoon of sugar, and a 1/4 tablespoon of pickling salt. We bring that to a boil and we give it a good stir, making sure that everything is well incorporated and that the sugar and the salt are dissolved into the mixture. In a clean mason jar, we're going to add our wild leek stems and we're going to pack in as many as possible. We're also going to add half a teaspoon of peppercorns, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of thyme, and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of mustard seed. Then you're going to pour the hot brine into the jar and you're going to leave 1/2 inch of headspace. Very important when you're canning, don't forget to use a tool to debubble. We want to make sure that we try and get any trapped air to rise to the top. We're going to wipe off the rim of the jar with a clean cloth and some vinegar. This just makes sure the rim is extra clean so that we don't have any issues when we're canning. Now we're going to screw on the lid, but we want to make sure that we don't tighten it too much. We only want it to be fingertip tight, so 1 twist. I'm going to place my jar inside my steam canner and I'm going to process my jar for 10 minutes. If you had a water bath canner, it would be the same. For our wild leek aioli, we're going to be using the leaves in this recipe. What I love most about this recipe is that you don't actually have to follow it to a T. It's very much adjustable depending on your tastes and your preferences. In this recipe, I used half a cup of mayonnaise. You could also use any mayonnaise substitute, a good pinch of salt, a small handful of wild leeks, 1 clove of garlic, and 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. You're going to start by placing your wild leeks in a food processor, and you're going to get them chopped up as finely as possible. From here, all you have to do is add all the ingredients into your jar with the mayonnaise and give it a good mix. Once everything is well mixed and incorporated, you're just going to give it a taste, and you can adjust the seasonings as needed. If you need a little bit more salt, go ahead. If you want it a little bit more acidic, add more lemon juice. You don't necessarily need to add the garlic. I just like my aiolis to be extra garlicky. But if you're looking for more of a mild flavor, you can exclude the garlic and just stick with the leeks. The wild leeks will still give you tons of flavor. When you're all done, place the aioli in the fridge and use it how you would normally use your aioli. My personal favorite is to use it on sandwiches. Our last recipe today is going to be for wild leek butter. This recipe is sort of similar to the last one in the sense that you can adjust the flavors depending on your personal preferences and your tastes. In my recipe, I used about half a cup of butter. You can also use any butter substitute, a small handful of wild leeks, 3 cloves of garlic, and about a half a tablespoon of parsley. This recipe is super simple. All you have to do is chop up the wild leeks and the garlic, melt the butter, and add everything together. You're going to give everything a good stir to make sure everything's well incorporated, and then it just goes in the fridge. The wild leek butter is very versatile. Wild leek butter tastes amazing, and it makes a great addition to your dish. My favorite ways to use it are to mix it into some steamed broccoli. I also like to saute my mushrooms in it, and it also makes absolutely incredible garlic bread.